Hey guys, Raiden here, and today I'm doing a weird kind of video because most of my videos that aren't Let's Plays are scripted and they're not just my thoughts coming out of my mouth directly into a microphone unedited, but this is what this is going to be. I wanted to talk about my overall impression of XCOM along with how big of an entry barrier there is. So I'd like to start off with the whole entry barrier thing before I get into what I think about the game. So there's been a lot of people saying that this game is unfair in many ways, but for the most part it is fair, and that seems to be the general idea is that there are some random spawns that do make the game a bit unfair and not really good. I'm not going to say the game's bad or ruined by these things, but it's essentially being punished for something that you cannot help, which is part of XCOM, yes, I will admit, but there are a few things that can just happen and make your experience worse. And for new players coming in, if you're not on the very easiest difficulty, and I don't even know how easy that is, I think we're playing on the second hardest, which honestly, I don't think is that hard yet. It could be worse. I'm having a little trouble with the base management because the tutorial isn't the best. It doesn't explain everything I'd like it to about, like, oh, you have these new resources like Intel, what's that? I don't know. It didn't really say too much. And there's just a bunch of things that aren't very thoroughly explained until you've already used up that resource or did something wrong with it. So that's a small part of it, is that just understanding the game is a little hard with the small amounts of info we're given, like outside of combat. But inside combat is where people seem to have the most trouble, and that's because they've never played an XCOM game before, and I almost forgot what it's like to not know how to play these games. Now, I'm not saying I'm an expert in any way. I'm just saying that I honestly don't remember what it was like just to not know what I was doing. But now that I kind of think back to it, XCOM is an extremely daunting game, and a lot of people are jumping on it because they're seeing ads for it, they're seeing Let's Plays for it, they're seeing reviews for it, and they want to get into it. And the problem is they don't realize that the game is just hard, and it's not gonna like let you go. It's not gonna hold your hand through anything. If you make a bad decision, that's what happens. Unless you're not playing on Iron Man, then you reload, but you might not even have saved early enough to fix that. The thing is, XCOM is a game that requires a lot of time and dedication. I can relate it to a fighting game almost, in terms of you have to keep playing this game if you want to understand. And when I say I compare it to a fighting game, let's take Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5, Killer Instinct, whatever. Let's say you fight Guile for the first time, and now it's a Guile who has maybe 300 matches, and that's going to be foreign, but he just decides to spam projectiles. And to everyone else in that community, it's like, oh my goodness, I really have to deal with this again. And but they know how. They just find it kind of boring at sometimes. Some people may find that fun. I don't know. But a new player, just someone spamming projectiles, is the scariest thing in the world. It's terrifying to see something that you don't know how to react to, and therefore you panic and you suffer for it because you are punished. And you realize that the entire game is based off of learning matchups, which is kind of XCOM, but not really. I won't say it's matchups, it's more of like soldier placement and movement and pacing. And it's so based on this fundamental knowledge of how the game works. I highly doubt if you're playing on a normal difficulty or even above average difficulty that you're gonna win. You're gonna fail a lot. And even my first time playing through Enemy Unknown, I think I lost because I'm stubborn and I won't play on anything but classic Iron Man. Don't ask me, I guess I'm just a masochist. But I think I lost, I want to say around 14 campaigns before I even started winning. And once I did, it felt wonderful, I'll give you that. And the game actually gets easier as you go along because that's the kind of game it is. Not sure about XCOM 2, but original XCOM actually gets really easy towards the end of the game, and the difficulty scalings are kind of messed up. But it's just another one of those things where you guys really have to keep hammering at it and getting better. Looking up info online is extremely helpful. Don't try to figure out everything by yourself. as I said, XCOM is extremely like getting into a fighting game in terms of you have to learn what you're doing through trial and error. You have to learn what you're doing through past info. It's not just going to come to you. Now, I also wanted to talk about. Oops, I just bumped my microphone. Screw me. I also wanted to talk about how the game kind of has this weird RNG. I'm not going to say complete RNG, but some of the enemy spawns are a bit interesting. Like, I don't want to spoil it, but there are certain objects in the game that can spawn enemies, and you can clear out an entire map and strongly believe you're safe because you've been sitting in this spot for 3 turns, and then for some reason, all of a sudden, the area that you thought was completely safe is just now filled with enemies. Which I'm not going to spoil why, because it's probably best if I just leave it to you to find out. But, it's just filled with these enemies, some you may never seen before, and you just don't know what to do because you're like, I had such a good position set up, and now I'm being punished for it. And to tell you the truth, XCOM is kind of like Darkest Dungeon in that feature, in where no matter how good you do, you just have to expect to lose soldiers. You have to expect to lose your best, and you have to know how to keep going on regardless. You can't just give up a campaign every time you lose your soldiers. If you do that, then I don't think XCOM is the game for you. Now, there is a ridiculous amount where you're underfunded, you only have like 2 privates left, and you've obviously lost. Then feel free. But this game, you will lose soldiers, so just a fair warning on that. So now that I'm done talking about the whole difficulty hike in comparing XCOM to a fighting game, I want to say what I think about XCOM. Or XCOM 2. Sorry, I haven't said 2 a lot. I haven't said 2 this whole video, I don't think. I might have. So I think it's, aside from graphical errors and, like, some problems with line of sight issues, the game works fine. I think it's actually the best game in the series yet. There's tons of things you can do. There's tons of variety. My favorite thing that they changed was not necessarily concealment, because I talked about that with my friends all the time. I'm like, why can't I hide from these aliens? Why is it every time I see them, they can see me? But no, it's actually the usefulness of all these different subclasses. And, for example, the sniper in XCOM 1, there was almost no use to going down. I don't even remember what the tree was called, but it was the pistol slash gadget tree kind of thing. I guess it wasn't the gadget tree. It was mostly like the pistol and reaction shot, if I recall. Anyways, there was 2 trees to the sniper, and one was a stationary sniper that did so much damage it was almost impossible to pass up on, and the other was kind of focused on all these other weird aspects, and no one really went for it because it just wasn't as upfront and usable in every situation as we're here in this one. I think you can find a use for every single class spec anyway in every single situation. Now, I can't say that for like endgame because I haven't gotten there yet, but from just looking at the abilities, I think that you can spec them almost any way, and you'll just have fun and be able to have a blast. Of course, there's going to be those that are, I guess, statistically better than others, but that's up to you to decide if you really just want, oh, I want to go for the best and nothing but, or if you just want, like, yo, I really like this ability, I want to use it a lot. So now that I've talked about that, what else would I want to talk about? The base building thing, as I said, it's fine. I think it's actually a lot better now they don't have to deal with consistent satellites. Once again, this is only like my first 8 hours, so there might be a satellite thing and I don't understand it. I know there's the coverage thing, but there's still a lot of things I don't understand about strategies and base building and such. But what I do understand is that the game, as I said earlier, does not explain enough to you at times. It leaves you kind of blind and in the dark about some things, while I think it perfectly explains combat for the most part. And it's not really fun that I'm getting overloaded with objectives. Like, if any of you guys know Plague Your Gripes, I actually saw him on Twitter and he was posting something about, like, XCOM always has so much uptime. How am I supposed to complete anything when I'm being given so much to do? And that's the same thing that happened to me in my playthrough of it. which is Let's Play on this channel, I saw something on the map that I was supposed to go to, and it's like, scan here for 5 days and find something. And I'm like, okay, I'll go there for 5 days. I sit there for 2 days, something else pops up. What is this? Oh, scan it for 3 days and I'll find something even more important? It's probably more important. Okay, I'll go over there. I sit there for 1 day. 2 more things pop up. I have no clue what I'm supposed to go to. I have no idea if I'm wasting my time. It's not gradually introduced to you at all. You're funneled into going into these areas on the map, and then all of a sudden it introduces like 5 to you before you can even finish one of the 2 you finally got the choice to pick. So that's not a lot of fun. Another thing that kind of bothers me so much, and it's a hit or miss thing, and I think it could be implemented well, but it's just a little too much, is that to prevent people from just spamming out Overwatch, they made it so that most of the missions do have timers where you're supposed to get to an objective within a specific time, because what people would do in Enemy Unknown is they just sit behind something with Overwatch and wait forever, because you could do that. The aliens most likely won't come to you, but what you can do is move up little inch by inch and just keep everyone in Overwatch, and that's how you won the game. Now, personally, I think, like, on the hardest difficulty, that's really what you have to do, and it's a little boring, to be honest, but they wanted to prevent that. I'm not sure if it's going to show up in this video, but in the top right corner, there should be some sort of, like, overload thing. It's like a counter. And if that counter hits 0, you just lose the mission no matter what, because you have to get this objective. The problem with that is it's the strategy aspect of it is taken away a little from it, because I am not getting a chance to think about what is the smartest move to do. In the first mission, I couldn't take my time and I had to rush one of my recruits up next to a generator, or whatever it was, like alien TV or whatever they use, and I had to rush them up next to it. And she got so close to dying because she was flanked by 2 different, by a sectoid and an Advent soldier, and there was nothing I could do, and she couldn't fight back against them. And I think that's the kind of situation that the creators want to have, but to like push something so early in the game as to where I have to almost completely forget tactics and rush my soldiers into battle to save this thing. In fact, there's a mod up right now. I'm not sure where you can get it. I'm assuming like it's Nexus probably, or maybe even Steam Workshop, that completely removes that counter. Now, to say if that improves the experience, maybe a little, honestly. But I think I'll just keep playing the base game the way it is. Another thing that applies to is when there's hostages and they're dying every single turn. I understand that you are trying to imbue fear. Did I even use that word right? That you're trying to get us to be afraid. You want us to know that these hostages are dying and there's nothing we can do about it, but that's a little on the bad side of it, is that there's nothing we can do about it. From turn 1, the moment you hit your end turn button, there's already 1 or 2 hostages dying every turn. And even if you're fighting your hardest and trying to distract them, you'll be fighting a sectoid and admin soldier over here, and there will be something way off on the other side of the map just taking out a bunch of civilians for no apparent reason, aside from just doing it, I guess. And that's not a whole lot of fun to me, because I don't like feeling like I failed when I should be being rewarded for my tactics. Not that I'm saying that my strategy was the smartest by any means. Jago died in that mission. He was my ranger, I believe. My tactics were definitely not the smartest, but I still feel like I hate it when there's just nothing I can do to save someone in a game. Like, not like it's a scripted event where they have to die, but the way it's shown off as if it's not scripted. It's shown off as if, oh, you could have saved them if you got here fast enough, which isn't the case. Your soldiers can't run that fast. I understand in XCOM 1 you had to let some die. There was very few cases where just no one died. But in here, they're just getting picked off every single turn. And it's just the most worrying and rushed thing, because even while you're fighting, they're still getting picked off by like 4 other aliens in the back. So, gameplay-wise, though, I think it's been improved overall. I haven't been able to talk about its good points, mainly just because I think everything else is good. Everything else has been improved in its own little way. Combat feels more fluid, in my opinion. The graphics are astounding. I think they're great, and there's just so much there. Actually, getting up close and looking at my soldiers, they look a bit more human now. They don't. Their body, their body just feels like it's the right shape finally, and their face works. And the sectoids are finally a bit more threatening. I didn't really like the original design of the sectoid. I felt like everything in the last XCOM was super goofy, and I hated it. I didn't like the thin men. They're supposed to be creepy, but I just couldn't help laughing at them. The sectoids are supposed to be scary. And I didn't really like the enemy choices in the first one, although I do have, 300, 400 hours in it. But that's aside from the point. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about the game. It's fantastic aside from those few things that bring it down. Oh yeah, and one last thing is the line of sight in this game is broken. Like, there are just certain objects in the game that you stand by, and I don't know what it is about those objects, but they're given some sort of magical property that gives people line of sight when you're next to them, even if it's through a wall or something ridiculous, like 2 houses over. It's just that you sitting there from a certain angle gives them line of sight, and it just doesn't really work. I feel like they didn't work hard enough. I feel like they tried to make the game more vertical because there's tons of things to climb up. The maps are way larger. There's tons of destructibility, but the price that came with that is trying to make it so that line of sight is accurate, but not it doesn't have to exactly be accurate, but they made it a little ridiculous. I think that's about all I have. Yeah, that's about all I have to say on the topic of XCOM 2. So, all I really have to say is if you're having trouble with this game, just keep trying. It's a trial and error thing. As I said before, it's like Dark Souls, it's like a fighting game. If you give up super early just because you're losing, then you will not see that big payoff in becoming part of an awesome community, because the XCOM community is one of the more energetic I've seen. They're more accepting of things that happen within the community. They're more supportive, and they really remind me of the Killer Instinct community in that way. So I'm glad to see any of you that came over and watched this video, because this is also a placeholder just because I'm absolutely exhausted and I cannot record an episode of The Witcher tonight like I wanted to. Anyways, I will catch you guys next time. Thank you for watching. If you want to watch my Let's Play, there should be I doubt you will, but if you do, it should just be on my channel. I might put a link in the description or something like that. Anyways, I will catch you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Raiden out.